The battle in Kappa and Lambda zones never left the limits of those joint killing chambers. It lasted 13 minutes. It was close, tight-packed, immediate, without covering no room for evasion. The Justaerin, regarded as the most mercilessly able of the Sons of Horus, a legacy that had been remarkable even in the times of the Luna Wolves against the Praetorians' two hand-picked kill teams. There was no quarter, no limit, no hope that any of them would walk away unscathed. The kill teams fought for Terra and for honor, driven by a deep hatred and a long-held yearning for vengeance against those who had betrayed them. Abaddon and the Justaerin personified that. The Justaerin and their first captain abandoned any dreams of glory or famous victory within nanoseconds of arriving. They could plainly see their gambit had failed. The loyalists had outplayed them and were waiting for them. The exhilarating promise of the ruse had evaporated. They fought for nothing more complicated than survival. Mutually assured surprise, mutually assured destruction, an instantaneous orgy of raw and savage killing. There was no range of any sort. Warriors found themselves pressed together, face to face, weapons blazed anyway in circumstances that the doctrines of any legion, no matter their methodology, would have ruled for close-quarter combat. Bolters roared, point blank, detonating man whose physical debris injured those around them like shrapnel. Plasma weapons and bulk lasers blasted against plate, their scorching beams passing through two or more bodies at a time. Assault cannons were pressed to faces or the side of heads and fired. An entire quarter of Kappa was filled with fire as a flamer gouted in the thick of a throng. Space Marines died standing up, cataphracti plate locked out, frozen like smashed statues. Space Marines died explosively, burst apart with such force that only scraps of them remained. The Justaerin quickly tried to dominate through the brute force of their Terminator exoplate, swinging demolishing fists and sighting blades at anything and everything, overpowering and smashing legionaries in more conventional suits of wallplate, heads crushed, limbs snapped, bodies tore. Some warriors died from 3 or even 4 simultaneous blows from as many opponents. But the kill teams had the likes of Garo among them, with Libertas, which could cut anything, and Har, whose size and power fist wrecked the Terminator panoply like foil. They had Bel Sepatus and his avenging Catacon paladins, who did not flinch and who had longed for a worthy combat. Bel Sepatus, in the thick of everything, believed he had found the glories Jinsar had predicted. He killed the 2 Justaerin Terminators in the first second and a half with a gleaming edge of Parosia. Abaddon killed with astonishing speed and meticulous efficiency. For the first minute of the fight, he merely tried to center his thoughts and reconcile the sudden reverse of fortune. For the next 3, he began to believe the Justaerin could prevail. They were the Justaerin after all. They were the best of the best, angels of death beyond compare. They had never failed, they had never been overcome, there was no stage of war on which they could not triumph. He began to calculate the logistics, how they would break out, where they would go, how would they secure, what the next step would be, into the palace, into the Sanctum Imperialis, divide up, run terror strikes to damage the citadel, conduct solo missions. It would take time for Dorn and Baldur to run them all to ground in a maze like the Palatine. Perhaps the original Spearhead mission was doomed, for none of them could reach the throne room alone, but there were other plans they could improvise, other targets, the Sigillite, Valdor, Dorn, the Bahab and the Grand Bastion. By the 4th minute, he had decided on the Aegis. There was no question. That should be their target. They should break clear, leaving this rabble dead in their wake, and bring the Aegis down. That would be enough. That would end the siege of Terra. The palace would be open to bombardment from the fleet. Great Lupercal would raise it from orbit. The vengeful spirit would send down monumental beams of high energy and annihilate the Palatine and the throne within. In the 5th minute, Urangauk was decapitated by one of the Catacon. Abaddon quickly hacked the killer apart, but the loss was psychological. His skin seemed to recede, like ghosts, like dreams departing at sunrise. His visions of the Palatine bombarded and ablaze grew distant and smaller and out of reach. In the 6th minute, killing without pause, Abaddon began to reevaluate. The skill and tenacity, the rationally brilliant approach to warfare that had carried him every step of his long career and made him first captain of the finest company in the finest legion, the first among firsts. A name taken seriously even by the Primarch Gene Sires, scented him like an axis. They were cornered, they were trapped, they were being killed by the dozens. Not even the Justaerin, not even they could prevail. Loyalist reinforcements would be coming. Even if they killed every last bastard in the chambers, their hope was dashed. He voxed the retreat to his surviving men. Activate homing beacons and get out. Pull back to the Monolith. Retreat now. Yes, the Sons of Horus were not above that. They were wise warriors, not fools. They knew how to read the flow of a fight and act accordingly. They were no good to anyone dead. Damn the Imperial Fist and their simplistic no backward step. Only a fool never took a backward step. The Sons of Horus were more like the barbarian White Scars. Those heathen primitives got that much right, at least. Withdraw to advance. There was always another day, and that the other day might bring victory instead. If you stood your ground like a yellow armored fool, you couldn't live to see it. By the 7th minute, Abaddon realized he was going to die. They had sent the homing signal repeatedly, once every 3 seconds. Standard protocol, extraction ordered, urgent. No flare had come. Their signal might have been blocked. The Monolith might have withdrawn from teleport range. No, the damn thing's grid had jammed. That was it. Abaddon could picture it. The filthy tech-adept scum frantically scurrying around the termite cabin, trying to repair a burnt-out grid. His beacon signal flashing on their consoles. The teleport had failed so many damn times on their approach. The Magi had blamed it on bedrock, on energy abstraction, on everything but themselves. It was their own shabby, miserable incompetence. They barely managed to get Abaddon and his men to the target. Now, the inadequate bastards couldn't get them back out. In the 8th minute, Abaddon decided that if he ever got out, if he ever managed that somehow, he would track down good-for-nothing one tag and kill her. He would kill her and a whole shitting linked unity at the Hepta War stead for their ineptitude. He would hack off their hands and feet, and load them into a teleport grid and transfer them unprotected into hard vacuum, or the heart of a star, or an unset diffuse pattern so the organic drizzle of their remains rained down over multiple sites at once. By the 9th minute, bleeding from a dozen wounds, 2 of them critical, he had resolved to kill the Lord of Iron too. If he got out, in that dream of escape, he would find the great Perturabo and kill him. This had been his great idea. Perturabo had seen the flaw, the Saturnine fault. He had toyed with it, cooed over it, revealed it to Abaddon furtively, like some pornographic image. He had gulled Abaddon into this. He'd used the first captain with his reputation and his authority and his unrivaled connection. He had used Abaddon to make this happen. Perturabo, damn his soul, had played the first captain Ezekiel Abaddon like a fool. He had tempted him with glory, made him feel smart and noticed. Preened his ego, made him feel like it was all his big, clever idea. The bastard had even made Abaddon beg him to let him do it. The Lord of Iron, Lord of Shit, had manipulated Abaddon into using his influence to draw resources from the Sons of Horus, coerced the Emperor's children into playing along, brokered the help of the Mechanicum. It made Abaddon do all the work and take credit, so if it failed like it was failing now, Abaddon would be to blame. Perturabo had deniability if it turned to shit. Perturabo could claim ignorance if 3 companies of the Sons of Horus, including the elite, not to mention how damn many of the Emperor's children failed to return. In death, Abaddon would be blamed for the disaster, and his memory dishonored. In death, he would be disgraced, called overreaching, called that fool Abaddon. Abaddon would find the Lord of Iron in the dream escape from this hell pit. He would annihilate those damned war Tomita with melters. He would face Perturaba and tear his skull of his spine and ram the haft of Forge Breaker down the stump of his neck and keep ramming it until the bastard's body split like a rotten god. In the 10th minute, Abaddon arrived at a point of calm, of serenity. He accepted his own rushing death, which was surely only seconds away. It had become a game, a contest, like the old practice cages. How many of them could he kill before he was bested? Some? Most? All? Some were fine warriors. Sepatus, he was magnificent. R was a brute, but an interesting challenge. Garrow. Abaddon fancied his own chances in an even match, but the man's sword was a piece of work, and so was Garrow's skill with it. He realized as he killed and killed and killed that he owed the Lord of Iron a genuine debt of gratitude. Abaddon was a warrior. He'd always been a warrior. It was his life, his purpose. He excelled at it. The warp was a distraction. It was just another weapon. Those who knelt before it and pledged their worship, treating it like some kind of god, they were fools, all of them. Magnus, Loga, Fulgrim, fools. Horus was a fool. The warp was nothing. Being a warrior was everything. It defined them. The skill of combat, the lessons of defeat, the joy of triumph. That was his sacrament. Let them worship their false god and their giggling abominations. This was what he had wanted. The chance to fight like a man and not a demon. The chance to take the palace and claim Terra the old-fashioned way, by force of arms. He wanted to win as a warrior. Perturabo had let him try. He owed the Lord of Iron thanks for that. This was everything, he realized, as he entered the 11th minute, with almost everyone dead. This moment, its simplicity, skill and courage tested to the limit, for no other reason, to serve no grand plan nor devious ruse, just tested for the sake of skill and courage. This moment was his life in its purest form, his life distilled. He fought Catacon and Imperial Fists and Black Shields and Cataphracti Terminators and Tactical Space Marines for no other principle than to find out who was best. There were no sides, no good or bad, no rebel cause or loyalist alliance. No war master, no emperor, no point to anything outside the broken, blood-smeared walls of the killing chamber. Just war, only war. The binary test of the galaxy that you passed in triumph or failed in glory. Death rushing closer was immaterial. How many could he take? How many more times could he prove his prowess? It was Abaddon. Let them come. Let them all come. Find more and bring them too. Bring anyone. Bring everyone. He would take them, or he would die. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. In the 12th minute, Nathaniel Garrow reached them, cleaving through one last Justaerin to close with him. They dueled, blade into blade, munitions long since exhausted. Garrow was good. His sword was remarkable. He dealt Abaddon 2 wounds that would have killed lesser men. He drove Abaddon back, boxing him against the chamber's ancient wall. Good tactics, but a mistake. When Abaddon pivoted, it was Garrow who found himself boxed, his back to the stone. Abaddon threw a punch that smashed Garrow against the wall. The man slumped, dazed, chestplate cracked. Abaddon swung to finish him. Bel Sepatus blocked his descending blade. Sepatus now, a proper test, a test of equals that carried them into the 13th and final minute of the fight. Their blades crashed and parried with such speed, it was joyful. The Blood Angel was amazing, the deftness of his skill, the precision of his stroke, the intensity of his address. Sepatus produced nuance solely that Abaddon could barely turn back. There were skills here to learn, tricks to appreciate and copy, and the care of his attacks was absolute, a miraculous degree of murderous focus. Abaddon was sorry to kill him. His blade cut Sepatus in half. The Riven Hound slammed Abaddon into the wall. Bricks shattered. Abaddon felt bones break and organs rupture. R was size and brute strength. There was no skill to speak of, just beautiful fury, like one of Russ's pack dogs or Angron's thug Karn. A wall of strength that crushed everything before it. The black shield adding by the throat. R took 6 or 7 of Abaddon's skill thrust into the belly and chest and refused to die, just refused. His strength seemed to grow as the blood wept out of him. R's power fist, like a siege ram, hammered Abaddon's head until his helmet broke and deformed, and Abaddon's face was a mess of gore. But R was a dead weight, pinning him to the wall. Abaddon's blade had found R's throat and slid in, up into the brain and out through the back of the Riven's hound head. Abaddon couldn't move. He could barely see. And dear R dead mass was slumped against him, crushing him against the wall. Abaddon tried to get free. There wasn't time. Garrow was back on his feet, that sword of his gleaming. Garrow raised it. This was it then. One downward slash from a sword whose edge cut everything. This was it. Abaddon wanted it to never end. Ever. Ever. The end came anyway.